Sorry about the delay, everyone. I will call this meeting of our Human Services Joint Subcommittee to order. Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Assemblymember Brown May. Here. Assemblymember Dickman. Here. Assemblymember Hafen. Here. Assemblymember Hibbets. Here. Assemblymember Howdegi. Here. Assemblymember Monroe Moreno. Here. Assemblymember Yeager. Here. Senator Cannizzaro. Here. Senator Dondero Loop. Here. Senator Stone. Here. Senator Titus. Here. Assemblymember Mosca. Here. Chair Wen.
Here. And it seems like everyone is here this morning. So welcome to the committee. Again, I apologize that we are starting a little late. We are just going to jump right into it. And with that, we will start. Today we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12. We have 12. Look at that. Everyone's counting much faster than me. Leave it to the money people to be able to do that. We have 12 Division of Child and Family Services budgets today that we are going to close. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller for the record from the LCB Fiscal Analysis Division. I'll be guiding the subcommittee this morning to close budgets within the Division of Child and Family Services. The first budget on the agenda is the Children, Youth, and Family Administration budget count 1013145 and begins on page 3 of your packet. There is one major closing issue in this budget account starting on page 3. The governor recommends a net reduction of $4.9 million over the 25-27 biennium to eliminate $6.1 million in American Rescue Plan Act coronavirus state fiscal recovery funds and one position, and change the funding source for 7 positions currently supported with ARPA funds. The programs and positions recommended for elimination and to be continued are displayed on tables on page 4. On March 19, 2025, the Governor's Finance Office submitted Budget Amendment A254933145 to remove the Quality Assurance Specialist position from the base budget and Decision Unit E499, which aligns the positions in the base budget and Decision Unit E499 with the legislatively approved number of positions. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of the Governor's recommendation as amended by Budget Amendment A254933145 to remove the Quality Assurance Specialist position from the base budget and Decision Unit E499 for a net reduction of $4.7 million or $1.1 million general fund increase and the elimination of $5.9 million in ARPA coronavirus state fiscal recovery funds and a change in the funding source to continue 7 positions currently supported with ARPA coronavirus state fiscal recovery funds in Decision Units E499 and E599, along with the decrease of $219,702 or $1,816 general fund increase due to the proposed elimination of the position in the base budget.
Do we have any questions about this budget? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, and I have a second from Senator Dondero Loop. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. If we can move on to the next closing item.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. There are 7 other closing items between pages 6 and 7 with noted technical adjustments on other item 5, other item 6, and a budget amendment noted on other item 7. Fiscal staff recommends other closing items 1 through 4 be closed as recommended by the governor. Other closing items 5 and 6 be closed with the noted technical adjustments to remove costs that were inadvertently included in the budget. And other closing item 7 be closed as recommended in Budget Amendment A255623145. Fiscal staff requests authority to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Do we have any other questions about those final closing documents in this? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Dondero Loop. Any other further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Motion carries. And we can move on to the next budget, Family Supports Program.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis from the Fiscal Analysis Division. Beginning on page 9, we have the Family Support Program, budget account 1013146. There are 2 major closing issues in this budget account. The first major issue begins on the bottom of page 9. The governor recommends a net reduction in funding of $1.7 million over the 25-27 biennium, which would result in the elimination of $2.9 million in ARPA funds and 8 positions, and a funding source change for 3 positions currently supported with ARPA funds. Oopsie. Ongoing positions funded by ARPA would require an alternative funding, as ARPA would expire during the second fiscal year of the 25-27 biennium. The positions recommended to be eliminated or continued are detailed in the table on page 10. The agency indicates that of the 8 positions recommended to be permanently eliminated, 3 are vacant, 3 are filled, and temporary contract staff whose contracts end on June 30th, 2025 fill the other 2 positions. The agency indicates it would issue layoff notices but will work to transition incumbents into vacant positions elsewhere within the division. Following the budget hearing, the Governor's Finance Office submitted Budget Amendment A253543146 on March 19th, 2025 to add 4 existing positions to the base budget supported with Systems of Care grant funding, which were originally approved by the Interim Finance Committee on October 10th, 2024. In addition, the budget amendment changes the funding source for 2 positions in the base budget funded from ARPA funding to Systems of Care grant funding, and since the 2 positions are no longer ARPA funded, removes the 2 positions from decision units E499 and E599. Additionally, the Governor's Office submitted Budget Amendment A257643146 on March 31st, 2025 to remove 2 additional ARPA-funded positions from the base budget and Decision Unit E499. The changes in the budget amendments align the positions and funding in the base budget with the legislatively approved positions and funding. Lastly, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to correct personnel costs in Budget Amendment A253543146. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of the Governor's recommendation as amended by Budget Amendments A253543146 and A257643146, which add 4 existing positions to the base budget, correct the funding source for 2 positions, and remove 2 ARPA-funded positions from the base budget for a net reduction in funding inclusive of the noted technical adjustment of $1.3 million, $345,903 general fund increase over the 2025 to 27 biennium. With the budget amendments, decision units E499 and E599 would eliminate $1.9 million in ARPA funds and 7 positions, change the funding source for 1 position currently supported with ARPA funds in decision units E499 and E599, and result in a net increase of $397,578 or $204,434 of general fund, due to the addition of 4 positions and a change in funding source for 2 additional positions in the base budget.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Don Loop. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Motion carries. We'll move on to the next issue.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. Major issue number 2 begins on page 12. The Governor recommends $566,558 over the 25-27 biennium to implement Nevada's federally approved Family First Prevention Services Act plan. The Family First Prevention Services Act is a federal program enacted under the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2018, which allows the state to access federal Title IV-E funds for a variety of eligible services aimed at keeping families together and preventing children from entering the foster care system. Services would include mental health services, substance abuse prevention and treatment services, and in-home parenting skill-based programs. The Governor's recommendation does not reflect upfront funding that would be required for the agency to receive the Title IV-E Prevention Plan reimbursements in fiscal year 2027. During the February 12, 2025 budget hearing, the subcommittee sought clarification about the matching funds needed to support the federal Title IV-E reimbursements that were included in the Governor's recommendation. The agency stated that they were placed in the wrong expenditure category, and the Governor's Finance Office submitted a budget amendment to correct to place the funding in the correct expenditure category. Additionally, the budget amendment removed parents as teacher programming costs in the 25-27 biennium. However, the budget amendment did not remove $19,466 in fiscal year 2027 for additional parents as teachers programming in the Governor's recommendation. Fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to reduce the general fund appropriations to remove the parents as teacher programming and reduce the federal Title IV-E reimbursements to align with the agency's FMAP rate. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of the governor's recommendation as amended in Budget Amendment A253-543146 and inclusive of the noted technical adjustments to eliminate the Parents as Teacher programming cost and update the FMAP rate to implement the Family First Prevention Services Act Plan funded with $301,461 or $9,090 of general fund in fiscal year 2027?
Any questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Don Darrell-Loop. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Danny Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division. For the record, there are 7 other closing items on pages 14 and 15. Other item 15 has a noted budget amendment. Other item 6 has a noted technical adjustment. And other item 7 has a noted technical adjustment. Fiscal staff recommends other closing items 1 through 4 be closed as recommended by the governor. Other closing item 5 be closed as recommended in Budget Amendment A253543146, and other closing items 6 and 7 be closed with the noted technical adjustments to adjust the funding mix in Decision Unit E225 and to reduce the costs in Decision Unit E257. Fiscal staff requests authority to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Don Darrell-Loop. Any question or any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously, and that brings us to our next budget.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division. For the record, our next budget is the Child Welfare Trust Account, budget account 6453242. There is one major closing issue in this budget account, beginning on page 17. The governor recommends general fund appropriations of $97,153 in each year of the 25-27 biennium to replace the cost of care deduction from children's public and court-ordered benefits. Children in the custody of the state who receive public and court-ordered benefits due to the child's own disability, parental disability, or the death of a parent have state-managed trust funds in the Child Welfare Trust account. By removing the deduction for cost of care, no children in foster care, regardless of whether the child receives public and court-ordered benefits or not, would contribute towards the cost of care. The agency has submitted a bill draft request to amend NRS 432 to remove language requiring the division to deduct expenses for services provided to a child from the child's state-managed trust fund. During the February 12, 2025 budget hearing, the subcommittee expressed concern regarding the compliance with the Supplemental Security Income, or SSI, maximum resource limit and state-managed trust fund accounts. In response to follow-up questions, the agency clarified that it establishes achieving a better life experience, or ABLE accounts, for all children receiving SSI in order to comply with SSI's maximum resource limit of $2,000. The agency indicates no other strategies are used regarding the funding held in the Child Welfare Trust budget account. The Governor's Finance Office submitted a budget amendment to remove transfers to the Rural Child Welfare account and increase funding in reserves in order to reflect the elimination of deductions for the cost of care. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of the Governor's recommendation as amended by Budget Amendment A253883242 to eliminate transfers of $97,153 to the Rural Child Welfare budget account in each year of the 25-27 biennium, and instead increase reserves by $97,153 to eliminate deductions for the cost of care that are currently deducted from the children's state-managed trust fund accounts?
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, I'd take a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
A motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Don Darrell-Loop. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Next item.
Thank you, Chair. Danny Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division. For the record, there is one other closing item on page 18 with the noted budget amendment. Fiscal staff recommends the other closing item be closed as recommended by the governor as amended by Budget Amendment A253883242. Fiscal staff requests authority to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'd take a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
A motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Don Darrell-Loop. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously, and that moves us to the next budget, which is 4895, Victims of Crime.
Thank you, Chair Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. Next budget count is Victims of Crime, budget count 2874895, beginning on page 21. There are two major closing issues in this budget account. The first one begins on the bottom of page 21. The governor recommends net general fund reductions of $89,430. Read that again, sorry. The governor recommends net general fund reductions of $89,430 over the 2025-27 biennium to fund three new crime victim compensation specialist positions and a new online payment application system to process victims of crime compensation claims. The agency states it currently outsources the processing of victims of crime compensation claims to Cost Containment Strategies Incorporated. The agency notes this causes several operational challenges as it is unable to directly access or utilize the data stored within the vendor system to generate unique reports, which causes inefficiencies. During the budget hearing on February 12, 2025, the agency testified that it did not anticipate a delay in processing claims for victims of crime during the transition to a new application and processing system. And following the budget hearing, the agency clarified that the correspondence from the current vendor does not include the vendor's name. The governor's recommendation includes 330 square feet of office space for three new positions. However, the agency indicates that it's no longer needed for these positions as they'll be moving to the new office, to a new building. On March 19th, 2025, the governor's finance office submitted budget amendment A25-476-4895 to eliminate the rent expenses from this decision unit. In addition, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to remove duplicate business productivity suite costs. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of the governor's recommendation as amended by budget amendment A25-476-4895, inclusive of the technical adjustment to remove duplicate business productivity suite costs, resulting in net general fund reductions of $107,233 over the 25-27 biennium to transition from outsourcing the processing of victims of crime compensation claims to provide those services internally with the addition of three new positions and a new online payment and application system.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator John Darrow Loop. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Chair Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. Our second major issue begins on the bottom of page 22. The governor recommends general fund appropriations of $1.2 million over the 25-27 biennium and the removal of $874,420 in Federal American Rescue Plan Act Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Funds to support victims of crime benefits. During the 82nd legislation, the legislature approved general fund appropriations and ARPA funds to replace court administrative assessments funding and declining federal grant revenue from the Victims of Crime Assistance Fund. Since ARPA funds would not be an available funding source for victims of crime compensation claims, the governor recommends general fund appropriations to replace the shortfall in federal funds. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of the governor's recommendation of $1.2 million in general fund appropriations over the 25-27 biennium and the elimination of $874,420 of ARPA funding to support victims of crime benefits?
Any questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Don Darrow Loop. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Chair Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. There are three other closing items on page 23 and 24. Other closing item number 1 has a noted technical adjustment. And other item 2 has a noted budget amendment. Fiscal staff recommends closing item 1 be closed as recommended by the governor with the noted technical adjustment to reduce duplicated expenditures. Other closing item 2 be closed as recommended by the governor as amended by budget amendment A25-47-64895, and other closing item 3 be closed as recommended by the governor. Fiscal staff requests authority to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Don Darrow Loop. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And that brings us to our next budget, which is Information Services 3143. Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. The next budget count begins on page 25 and is Information Services, budget count 1013143. There is one major closing issue in this budget account and begins on the bottom of page 25. The governor recommends federal Title IV-E funds of $21 million and a reduction of Federal American Rescue Plan Act Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Funds of $22.5 million over the 25-27 biennium to support the ongoing Unity replacement efforts. As background, the Unity system is Nevada's federally required comprehensive child welfare information system. It is an electronic child welfare case management tool and stores official case records for all children and families served by child welfare agencies in Nevada. According to the agency, replacing the system will lead to improved accuracy and timeliness in child protective assessments, better family engagement, and data-driven decision-making. State funds, including ARPA Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Funds used towards the program replacement, are eligible for a dollar-to-dollar federal Title IV-E reimbursement. The governor's recommendation to continue funding the Unity replacement project as reflected in Decision Unit E227 includes federal Title IV-E reimbursements of $21 million, but does not include the necessary state funds to receive the federal reimbursements. According to the agency, the total cost for the Unity replacement project is estimated to be $52.2 million and would be supported by $21.5 million in each year of the 25-27 biennium and $7 million in the 27-29 biennium. The agency anticipates that the fiscal year 2026 projected expenditures of $21.5 million will be supported by $10.7 million of ARPA funds and $10.7 million in federal Title IV-E funds. The fiscal year 2027 projected expenditures of $21.5 million would be supported by $5.4 million of ARPA funds, $10.7 million of federal Title IV-E funds, and a general fund appropriation of $5.4 million. However, the governor's recommended budget does not include ARPA funds or general fund appropriations to support the Unity replacement project in the 25 through 27 biennium. Subsequent to the budget hearing, the governor's finance office indicated it would not be submitting a budget amendment to address the funding to continue the Unity replacement project in the 25 through 27 biennium. Since the agency's projections do not indicate it would fully expend the previously authorized ARPA funds prior to the end of the 23-25 biennium, it would appear appropriate to include authority for the remaining ARPA funds of $16.1 million in the agency's budget in the 25-27 biennium to continue funding for the project. However, since ARPA funds would only be available through the federal deadline of December 31st, 2026, based on the agency's projected expenses, it appears that the agency would need additional state funding to support the project from January 1st, 2027 through June 30th of 2027. If the subcommittee wishes to recommend approval to continue funding the Unity replacement project in order to monitor the project implementation, the subcommittee may wish to consider recommending issuing a letter of intent to receive semi-annual updates on the project. Alternatively, if the subcommittee does not wish to recommend approval to continue funding the Unity replacement project, the projected remaining ARPA funding of $16.1 million could be redirected to one or more other existing projects that have been previously approved to be supported by ARPA. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of the governor's recommendation to continue funding the Unity replacement project in the 25 through 27 biennium, inclusive of the noted technical adjustments to federal Title IV-E authority and authorized ARPA funds to align the agency's projections, resulting in authorized ARPA funds of $16.1 million and federal Title IV-E authority of $21.5 million over the 25 through 27 biennium? And does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of general fund appropriations of $5.4 million in fiscal year 2027, which is not included in the governor's recommendation to fully fund the Unity replacement project for the 2025-27 biennium? If so, does the subcommittee wish to place the $5.4 million in fiscal year 2027 in the restricted IFC contingency account and to direct the agency to seek this funding when it is able to provide the IFC with updated projections for the project, which justify the need for the general fund appropriation? And does the subcommittee wish to recommend issuing a letter of intent instructing the Division of Child and Family Services to report semi-annually to the IFC on the status of the replacement of the division's Unity system?
Thank you. I do have some questions, and I'm hoping maybe someone from the agency might be able to come up to the table to answer some of these questions. Thank you. It's good to see you here today. And I appreciate you taking my phone call probably late last night and early this morning to answer some additional questions. But I want to make sure that we have some of this updated information on the record. We've been provided some information about this Unity system and its update. And so if I can just ask you a couple of questions. Right now, we are in federal compliance with our current Unity system. It's just old. Is that right?
For the record, Marla McDade Williams, I serve as the administrator for the Division of Child and Family Services. Yes, Madam Chair, that's correct.
And then I guess my next question is, this has been kind of an ongoing process of engaging stakeholders around the state about what kind of things needed to be included in an updated Unity, like Unity 2.0. Is that correct?
For the record, Marla McDade Williams, yes, that's correct.
And I know some of this predated your tenure with this agency, but as the administrator. But just so we're all clear, the IFC in the October 20th, 2022 meeting allocated $18.4 million of ARPA funds to be authorized to replace and update the Unity system that is currently in effect. And it looks like as of today, only about a little over $1 million of that has been expended, or maybe a little under $2 million has been expended of those funds. Is that, are we correct in that understanding as well?
Marla McDade Williams, for the record, yes, that's correct.
I guess my concern, and I think this is the concern you may hear from other members of the committee, is that under the current timeline, it seems very difficult that we would be able to expend those ARPA funds before we are required to do so at the end of 2026, despite all of the good efforts that your agency is trying to do that. And so I guess my question is can you give us a timeline on when that needs assessment was completed?
Marla McDade Williams, the needs assessment was completed about 4 weeks ago. And that is the process that moves us into the next stage, which is issuing the RFP. We have selected a vendor to assist with writing the RFP. We anticipate that the RFP itself to solicit a vendor to develop the system should be issued later this year, later this summer.
So right now you have, since receiving the final needs assessment, because of the complexity of this system, it wasn't something that you felt comfortable with purchasing, completing that RFP. And so you have now contracted with an outside vendor to draft the RFP for the program.
Marla McDade Williams, that's correct.
And I'm unclear here. Has it been approved, or is it through the process of being approved for that contract vendor?
Marla McDade Williams, we selected a contractor off the master services agreement. So it really is just a matter of coming to terms with that contract. It is in development we've been through that process, initiating that process. It does ultimately require approval by the Children's Bureau and by the Board of Examiners. Actually, it doesn't. It's a clerk of the board because it's under $100,000. So, again, just a process. We anticipate that being completed relatively soon, and then we will have the vendor start actually working on writing the RFP.
Do you have any indication, or is that still a part of like the contract negotiations with that vendor to write the RFP on how long it will take to incorporate the needs assessment that has taken place over the past year to draft this RFP?
Marla McDade Williams, my understanding is that we anticipate release by September of this year.
Okay. And then at that point, then it will have to go through yet again this process of actually finding a vendor to develop this software program.
Marla McDade Williams, that's correct. The RFP will be issued. There will be a review of applications that come in through the purchasing review process, and then ultimately a vendor selected, negotiations on terms of that, and then they will begin actually developing the system early in 2026.
I guess my concern is, and this isn't a reflection on you or the work that your agency or the division has been working on this, but I mean, I don't know if I've heard so many layers of bureaucracy to get to ultimately being able to expend that money by the end of 2026. And so with that, I think I have serious concerns about us being able to complete that project. In addition to the request here that we already know that that is not going to be enough money, and we are asking for already at an additional $5.4 million in fiscal year 27 of general funds to help keep up with this project that it will do. And I don't know if you know this, but was there ever any indication to buy a program that was like off the shelf?
For the record, Marla McDade Williams, there are no off-the-shelf products out there. There are vendors who will tell you there are off-the-shelf products out there, but there are not. And so, it's not like our Microsoft Word where we can go out and pick one. They all require some level of development. And this is a highly sought-after project. And we have multiple vendors all telling us that they could come in and do it, and they are basically off the shelf, but they are not in fact off the shelf. And so we believe that to hold integrity and full transparency to the process, that this is the way that it needs to go.
I guess I'm concerned, and I'm sure other committee members will have these same concerns, because we have learned over and over and over again, the more we customize these products for our state and our very specific needs, sometimes of individual counties or individual agencies, that it becomes more and more expensive to maintain these systems, and we're not able to easily update systems. We're not easily able to do any of these things because we have over customized a product. I just have concerns that I would like to, and I think other committee members, and if anyone has any further questions or discussion on this matter, I'd ask you to, raise your hand and let me know. It seems like there are other options out here that won't take away from this $4.5 million that is required to even complete this program as proposed, that was not included in the governor's recommended budget. So now we have to go out and find $5.4 million in fiscal year 27 to do this. And while I appreciate the process of stakeholder engagement throughout the state to come up with what we needed in this needs assessment, I just don't know at this time if we can afford to risk $18.4 million being reverted back to the federal government when we have plenty of other not completely funded ARPA projects that could utilize those funds. So I don't know if anyone has any other further questions. Okay, Assembly Member Mosca.
Thank you, Chair. And just understanding this, that every other state does have this system, do we know if the other states have used a more off-the-shelf, or do they customize, or just what are other states doing?
For the record, Marla McDade Williams, other states are managing this the same way we are. They're having to go out to bid, and they're having vendors come in and identify the type of product that they could deliver. Now, we can always reduce the scope of the project to something that, if the $5 million wasn't there, we would reduce the scope of the project based on that amount, and vendors would bid on whatever dollars that we allowed in that bid process. I have asked the question of the Children's Bureau because I'm not comfortable being in this situation myself. I don't want to be in charge of a failed IT project, right? So I asked them, why don't you guys have a product that we can all just use? And they have consistently come back and said that is not what we do. You need to go through this process, and you need to identify a vendor that meets the CWIS compliant needs. There is a base of CWIS compliance. And, again, we could reduce the scope of the project to not rely on the additional $5 million. And just a reminder, the ARPA funding is used as a match for the Title IV dollars. So it means that we don't have to use state general fund dollars as the match. So the additional funding that is was requested, the $52 million and that 5.1 million, again, is matchable. But that is the only general fund out of that $52 million project that was envisioned being needed. But if the scope of the project is reduced based on a reduced amount of money, then we will accept whatever vendors are able to propose at that time for a CWIS compliant system.
Do we have any other further questions? Assemblymember Monroe Moreno.
Madam Chairs, not so much a question, but more of a comment. I'm very much concerned, right? Since we started getting ARPA dollars in this state, I've been very concerned that we didn't send any money back. The fact that it was in an October 2022 IFC that this money was appropriated, the 18.4 million, and to date in 2025 we've only spent almost 2 million of that 18 million. We know that we have until the December of 2026 to have it all gone. But your project for Unity design, development, and implementation is October of 2027, so that's past that deadline date. There's no guarantee the federal government's not going to come in and this be one of the projects they decide to take the money back on, and then the state is on the hook to pay the difference, and we're in a position where we don't have extra dollars. Wish we had a money tree outside, we don't. So I'm very much concerned, and I know that other states do have systems. I think we need to look and see what other states are doing and see if we can replicate that here in a much timelier manner. And it may not utilize the whole 18.4 million. It may be a smaller dollar amount, but we would have a better system than the system we have now and utilize those ARPA dollars that we have before we lose them or have to turn them back over because we didn't utilize them. Every IT project that I have lived through in this legislative body always takes longer than it should and costs a lot more money than it should. And I'm afraid we're in that position with this one. These dollars could be spent elsewhere if we can't spend it here. So I would encourage the department to work with our staff to find out other options. And maybe we don't close this today and we defer this to a decision later. But I'm very much concerned that we're not going to get this project done. So that would be my request, chairs, to have our staff work with the division to find other options to bring to this body, and then we can close it. That will both work for the state and utilize these funds.
Thank you. Senator John Darrell.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I would concur with my co-chair or my chair over there, and all the chairs at the table. I think that would be a great idea to defer this. My concern is, honestly, tomorrow this federal government could extract all the money from this process. And with that being said, I don't think we have the luxury of the flexibility and the time to just see if this plays out. And that's not for any reason excepting that's what's happening. It just happened to the Department of Ed, right? I mean, it's happened to several departments. So that's my concern. So if we could defer this and keep our fingers crossed, Madam Chair, I think that it would be a better thing to do and make sure that we have sort of, as you would, our ducks in a row before we start deciding how this money is going to play out. Thank you very much.
Do we have any other further questions or concerns or statements or anything like that? Nope, I don't see any. At this time, I guess I am inclined to accept, a modified motion. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I motion that, based on the discussion today, I recommend that we defer this discussion to the full committee so that staff can research other potential solutions.
I would second that.
Any further discussion on that? With that, seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Yes, I think that is a great idea. I know we don't have much time, but anything we can do to make sure that we are not ending up in a situation at the end of 2026 where we are reverting a bunch of money back to the federal government that could have otherwise been utilized to do some good things here that we need. And with that, we will move on to the, there's some other closing items, but 1 minute recess. Okay, we're back in committee. Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. There are 7 other closing items on page 29. Fiscal staff recommends other closing items 1 through 7 be closed as recommended by the governor. Fiscal staff requests authority to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I'd take a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Don Darrow Loop. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Motion carries. That brings us to our next budget. Go ahead and begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. Our next budget account is Northern Nevada Child and Adolescent Services. Budget account 101328 begins on page 31. There's one major closing issue in this budget account beginning on the bottom of page 31. The governor recommends net revenue reductions of $435,508 to eliminate 2 positions and associated costs to convert 1 full-time psychiatric nurse position to a contract position. The positions recommended for elimination include 1 clinical social worker, 1 mental health counselor, and 1 psychiatric nurse. The agency indicated that it had selected candidates to fill 2 of the positions recommended to be eliminated. It was working with the governor's finance office to determine if a budget amendment would be submitted to retain the psychiatric nurse and mental health counselor positions recommended to be eliminated. Following the budget hearing, the agency indicated that after discussions with the governor's finance office, it was determined that the governor's recommendation in the executive budget would not be amended. The agency indicates that none of the positions recommended to be eliminated have been filled. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of the governor's recommendation of a net reduction in funding of $435,508 over the 2025-27 biennium to eliminate 3 positions and fund 1 contract position?
Any questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Don Darrow Loop. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Let's move on to the next one.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. There are 8 other closing items on page 33. Other item 8 includes a noted budget amendment. Fiscal staff recommends closing items 1 through 7 be closed as recommended by the governor, and other closing item 8 be closed as recommended in budget amendment A253203281. Fiscal staff requests authority to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Don Darrow Loop. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. Moving on to our next budget account, the Southern Nevada Child and Adolescent Services, budget account 1013646. This begins on page 35 of your packet. There are 2 major closing issues in this budget account. The first major issue begins on the bottom of page 35. The governor recommends net reductions of $838,157 to eliminate 23 positions and associated costs and add 1 new clinical social worker position. Savings from the eliminated positions would be partially used to support cost of contract positions. The agency indicates that 23 positions recommended for elimination have been vacant for over 2 years, and the agency has utilized vacancy savings to fund temporary contract workers over the 23-25 biennium. If approved, the recommendation would improve transparency around the amount of funding being used to support contract staff, as historically the agency has submitted work program requests throughout the interim to use vacancy savings to support its contracted positions. During the February 12, 2025 budget hearing, the agency testified it primarily struggles to compete with salaries offered in the private sector and noted that working with youth in the facilities is a challenging environment. Following the budget hearing, the agency reported that in fiscal year 2024, $4.9 million was supported 142 temporary contract positions through January 31st, 2025, and 42 temporary contract positions have been supported with $1.4 million in fiscal year 2025. On March 19th, 2025, the Governor's Finance Office submitted Budget Amendment 825-355-3646 to support a contract position in Decision Unit E607 and to remove the clinical social work position, which the agency indicates is already included in its base budget and was not intended to be added to this decision unit. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of the Governor's recommendation in Decision Units E607 and E651 as amended by Budget Amendment 825-355-3646 for net reductions of $430,860 or $176,233 to general fund over the 2025-27 biennium for the elimination of 23 positions and the addition of approximately 21 contract positions?
Any further questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Don Darrow-Loop. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. Moving on to major issue number 2, beginning on page 37. The Governor recommends reductions of $694,548 to transfer one psychiatric caseworker position to the Youth Parole Services budget account and to transfer one psychiatric caseworker position and one clinical program manager position to the Northern Nevada Child and Adolescent Services budget account. The psychiatric caseworker recommended to be transferred would assist the Youth Parole Services mental health team with the admission process, court appearances, facilitating child and family team meetings, and other case management services. The psychiatric caseworker recommended to be transferred to the Northern Nevada Child and Adolescent Services budget account would be placed in the agency's wraparound in Nevada program to ensure continuity of care for youth returning from out-of-state care. The clinical program manager recommended to be transferred to the Northern Nevada Child and Adolescent Services would oversee statewide supervisors' case assignments to psychiatric caseworkers. During the February 12, 2025 budget hearing, the agency confirmed that the caseload had decreased in Southern Nevada, and the agency had also previously focused resources on providing wraparound services in Southern Nevada. The recommended position transfers would address the increase in caseloads in Northern Nevada and properly align the position's duty locations with the correct budget accounts. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of Decision Unit E902 to transfer one psychiatric caseworker position to the Youth Parole Services budget account and Decision Unit E903 to transfer one psychiatric caseworker and one clinical program manager's position to the Northern Nevada Child and Adolescent Services budget account with a total reduction in funding in this budget account of $694,548 or $416,494 of general fund over the 2025-27 biennium as recommended by the Governor?
Any questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Don Darrow-Loop. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And let's move to the last one.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. There are 10 other closing items on page 39. Fiscal staff recommends other closing items 1 through 10 be closed as recommended by the Governor. Fiscal staff requests authority to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'd take a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator John Darrow-Loop. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And I just wanted to take some time. I know we moved through those very, very quickly, but like some of our other budgets, I just appreciate staff and Mr. Miller being able to work through the various technical adjustments and the various budget amendments that they've been working through to make sure that this ran as smoothly as it did this morning. So thank you for that. And with that, the remaining 5 budgets were budgets that we did not hear. And I'm going to ask Mr. Miller to go through those, and then we can all open up for questions when he's completed all 5 of them. So go ahead and begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. I will now present budget counts that the subcommittee has not previously heard for the Division of Child and Family Services, which staff are responsible for developing closing recommendations for. I will briefly pause at the end of presenting all budget accounts to allow for questions. When I present the last budget in this group, the chair may wish to ask for a single motion for closing consideration of all budgets for which fiscal staff is responsible for developing closing recommendations for. The Victim Services Budget Count 1014894 on page 41. There are two other closing items in this budget count. The Victims of Domestic Violence Budget Account 1013181 on page 43. There are no closing items in this budget account. The Children's Trust Account, Budget Account 1013201 on page 45. There are no closing issues in this budget account. The Transition from Foster Care Budget Account 1013250 on page 47. There are no other closing issues in this budget account. The Review of Death of Children, Budget Count 1013251 on page 49. There are no closing issues in this budget account. At this time, I will pause for any questions from the members.
Do we have any questions on those 5 budgets? I don't see any. Go ahead and continue, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Chair. As previously noted, fiscal staff is responsible for developing closing recommendations for the following budget accounts. To assist with the closing, fiscal staff has identified the budget accounts that are recommended to be closed as recommended by the governor. Fiscal staff recommends the following budget accounts be closed as recommended by the governor and requests authority for staff to make technical adjustments as necessary. Budget account 1014894, DHS DCFS Victim Services. Budget account 1013181, DHS DCFS Victims of Domestic Violence. Budget account 1013201, DHS DCFS Children's Trust Account. Budget account 1013250, DHS DCFS Transition from Foster Care, and budget account 1013251, DHS DCFS Review of Death of Children.
Any questions about that recommendation? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator John Darrow Loop. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And that brings us to the very end. I will close all those budget hearings and budget closings. Thank you, everyone. And at this time, we will go to our last agenda item, which is public comment. If you are here to testify in public comment, I would ask you to come up to the table, either here in Carson City or down in Las Vegas. I don't see anyone in Las Vegas. I don't see anyone coming to the table in Carson City. If we can go to the phone lines for public comment. Do we have anyone on the phone lines for public comment? Do we have anyone to answer that question? Is the real question.
Thank you, Chair. The public lines are open and working. However, there are no callers at this time.
Thank you. And with that, I will close public comment and thank everyone for their time. Meeting adjourned.